Oh, what is up, warriors, and welcome back to another video and another vlog. Today we're going to be doing a full day of eating, you probably can tell by the title, but I'm also going to be discussing some of the recent leg training that I've been doing because a few of you asked in the last videos. Nothing much more to it than that, pretty chill day, just working, making food, eating food, a little bit of training. Let's get on with it. Also, if you haven't seen yet, we have the Embrace the Suck, the daily reminder coffee mugs. You can grab them, I'll put a link to these in the description down below. Before we get started in today's day of eating video, this is the first one for a long time. There's a couple of reasons I've put off making this video, and that I just want to put in as a disclaimer before I get stuck into things. Firstly, nutrition is highly individual. I'm not making this video in a way to tell you what to do, because ultimately that is going to come down to you. It's going to come down to your individual genetics as well as your own individual circumstances, depending on, what goals you're trying to achieve. Are you trying to lose fat? Are you trying to build muscle? Are you stressed out? Are you inside a lot? There's an endless amount of things that is important to take into consideration, rather than making blanket statements like you should go keto, you should eat high carb, carnivore, vegan, whatever it is. Although hopefully I can share some tips that you maybe can experiment with and see if it works for you. That's ultimately what I'm about. Second is the dogma side of things. I'm not particularly interested in subscribing to one type of diet or anything. I'm certainly not on the vegan side of things. I do like to eat a lot of meat, personally, because that makes me feel better. There's stuff like oysters, eggs, liver, all of that sort of stuff is some of the most nutrient dense food, if not the most nutrient dense food on the planet. Saying that it is not nutritious or not useful or not good for us, I think is a pretty wild statement to make. But that is a whole nother video in and of itself. Ultimately, my opinion is if you're a vegan or a carnivore or whatever it is, and you feel good doing that, I'm completely fine with that. You continue to do that. I'm also going to continue to do what I feel good eating. So that's kind of just getting that bit out of the way. Obviously, I'm open to constructive criticism as well. So before we get to arguing in the comments, just remember that arguing with people on the internet is never really a good way to spend your time, because ultimately it doesn't do anything good. Okay, so with that in mind, let's actually get on to making some food. Right, so if there is one thing that I am a big fan of, it is leftovers. So the way I currently eat is basically 2 meals per day. I have a meal now, which is actually around midday. I kind of fast up until that point. I eat something around midday that is generally the night before's leftovers, and then I go about doing whatever I'm doing. I usually train in the afternoon, so I might have something before, probably a shake or something afterwards, and then I'll eat my evening meal, which generally I cook, and then I make enough so that there is leftovers for me and usually my girlfriend the day afterwards. So essentially, I only end up cooking once per day, which is nice. I love cooking, but it can take up a lot of time, and this is just like a simple, no-brainer, easy way that I like to eat. So today's leftover we have is beef chili con carne, which, by the way, I do have a recipe for on my blog post, which is the recipe I used to make this, with some leftover guacamole, and this is definitely a weekly staple for me. It just tastes amazing, and it's super convenient. So there we have breakfast, as I said, that leftover chili. I usually have a couple of eggs pretty much every day, just chuck it on top. Eggs are fantastic, full of choline, a bunch of fat soluble vitamins. Then we also have basically a whole avocado just kind of like smashed up. Again, some more good fat, some vitamin E, some other things, and cucumber on side for some freshness. And that's basically breakfast. So making some kind of guesstimates based on the chili. This meal should be around the 800 calorie mark. It's about 56 grams of protein, 20 grams of carbohydrates, and about 58 grams of fat, which is, I would say, probably average. I tend to go heavy on the protein and the fat in the morning. Try to get around 1,000 calories for my first meal. This will probably be bumped up by another coffee and some dark chocolate or something later. And then I just tend to stack the rest of my calories after my training. But yeah, this is breakfast. All right, we have the greatest combination. We got some chocolate, some dark chocolate specifically, and we have some coffee. This is like the usual midday break from work, sit down, recaffeinate. Whilst I'm drinking my coffee, I wanted to talk to you guys through a leg session that I performed a couple of days ago. I did notice that when I was back over quarantine, I had some like niggles coming up where my lower back wasn't feeling quite right and just wasn't feeling strong. So getting back into training now, the past sort of month or so at the gym, I've been getting back into some posterior chain development because quad development wasn't really an issue. I kind of managed to keep that up with step ups and pistols and shrimp squats and those sort of things during quarantine, but the lower back, the posterior chain definitely suffered. I'm a big fan of the sumo deadlift. I actually like it for a flexibility reason. It's a really great prep for people who are working on their middle splits. It helps to build that strength and that structure in that kind of deep horse stance squat position with some nice load. Thomas Kurz actually recommends that you want to be able to do, I think, double bodyweight deadlift before doing your middle split training. So that's an interesting one by itself. I'm basically doing here high rep sets, sort of 8 reps with about 120, 130 kilos. So nothing crazy on the bar. I would certainly consider this more like strength endurance. It's still like a nice big compound lift, but the rest is short and the reps are quite high. As I said, this is a prep phase. It's about getting back into training, so we're not necessarily concerned about lifting lots of weight. We then moved to the second exercise, which was a Nordic curl. Now, David had this big brain genius idea of how to set up Nordics. Like, we were just faffing around for ages trying to figure out where to actually set this up. And then we figured that you can just simply flip over the like spotter pins, put them the other way around so that it resists going up, put your feet under there on a box, and you have a Nordic curl machine. My mind was blown for the day after we realized that one. For those of you who don't know, Nordic curls are basically a bodyweight version of a hamstring curl. The strength curve is slightly different. It gets really, really hard the more stretched out you get. And then over the set, you'll see like my body position changes. So I'm starting the first few reps, I'll try to be as extended as I can. And as I get tired, as I get more fatigued, I'm gonna bring that level of extension, the amount of hips, opening at the hips, just down a bit, just so I can manage to still get in between those 3 to 5 reps. But if we're gonna talk about bodyweight, hamstring, posterior chain development, this is probably the best exercise that you can be doing. After that, we hit some of my all-time favorite drills. Number one was the seated good morning. The seated good morning is actually an old school Olympic lifting and weight training exercise, but it is a fantastic mobility tool as well for people who are interested in getting that pancake and interested in improving their squat depth. This drill is second to none. It's amazing. You don't need much weight here, especially when we're doing sort of like 12 to 15 reps on these seated good mornings. The main focus here was, maintaining that good neutral spine lordotic lifting position. And then as I'm hinging forward, I'm trying to keep that and just get all of that rotation happening in the hips. So I can sink my belly, my chest down in between my legs and get a real feeling for that good hamstring stretch, adductor stretch position. Then finally, we finished up with a little bit of spinal articulation / core work. So the first one is a spinal articulation back extension. You can almost think of this as a Jefferson curl, but with the body at 90 degrees as opposed to standing. So here we're gonna try and curl from like the cervical spine curl all the way down to the base of the spine and then reverse that movement back up. It's nice for getting a little bit of conditioning in a flex spine position. It also works nicely at conditioning that bit where the pelvis rotates round and contracting the hamstring in and out of that rotating position, which can get quite overstretched. I've certainly had pulls and strains there from sort of that aggressive stretching with like head to toe or pancake. So it seems to work nicely at like high hamstring glute area and generally flex spine position. And then we paired this one with a hanging leg raise. Specifically, this is a hanging gar hammer raise. This is done in a particular way where we don't let the knees drop not much below 90 and we keep the toes pointed in, get a little bit more activation of that lower abdominals. But essentially, we're just doing like a flex spine abdominal crunch sort of thing. Again, this is super basic, but the basics work well. And that's kind of what this session, what this phase of training is about at the moment. It's about getting back into doing some weightlifting. So I'm not necessarily doing complex stuff. I'm just doing basics, getting used to loading again, building up volume as well, because the DOMs after the first couple of sessions of going back to some leg training was horrific. So now hopefully I'm in a better position to eventually get towards some like double bodyweight squat and at least double bodyweight deadlift. That would be some numbers that I'd like to tick off. What are you guys doing with your leg training? I'd love to know. Do you use weights? Do you use bodyweight only? What exactly do you do? Let me know in the comment section down below. Right, is now like 3 or 4 o'clock. I think we need to go grab something for dinner because I actually haven't got anything at all at the moment. So let's see what the butcher says. Could I get the lamb runs, please?
Yeah, how many? Thank you.
Reset. This one is. Right, so we're back from the butcher's. Didn't get too much, to be honest with you, just got some stuff for tonight. Got the usual though, got some more eggs. I bought a lamb rump, it's about 300-ish grams, so usually per meal I try to get like 300 to maybe 500 grams of meat, so this is probably a little on the low side, but breakfast was pretty good as well. So that is gonna be dinner, we're gonna do that later on. I'll share with you something more about that then. And then, yeah, we got this bad boy, a tomahawk steak. So, just in time. So I'm sure like many people during lockdown got into a little bit of DIY. Also, I bought this house, been in here a year now, which seems like it's just flown by, but I've been doing some work, some renovations, some bits outside. It's just nice to like switch off from business stuff and just build something for an hour. It's just been a really good way to like just not think and just do something physical that isn't training as well. But anyway, it's now about 7 o'clock. We're gonna eat some dinner. The final meal of the day, as I said, we got that lamb, some roast potatoes, all of that good stuff. Very, very simple and straightforward.
You didn't have that money in that job, she said. Once you had paid for security, they said
So there is dinner, that lamb rump, a bunch of potatoes, and then some cavolo nero, just fried up with some Worcestershire sauce. That is that's an English meal, if ever I've seen one. But again, super simple, probably a little bit too light on the meat, so I'm gonna have to have some protein with dessert. Yes, I pretty much always have dessert. It's been a bad habit that I've got into, but you know, again, you gotta treat yourself. Calories overall though, probably about 60 grams protein, 180 to 100 grams of carbs, and a fair bit of micronutrients and some goodness in there anyway. That's probably about an average meal, but most of the time I stick to rice just because it's easy and there's less of it to eat to get more calories in. But yeah, a pretty good all-round meal. And finally we have dessert. So in here we've got one of these. So this is like a pudding pot basically, but it's just got coconut. It's okay. It's okay. Got a banana, some peanut butter and some frozen blueberries. So that is also a bunch of calories. And then today I'm just kind of low on the protein side of things. So this is a couple of scoops of natural chocolate whey, and then also some creatine. Usually this would be my post-workout. If I trained today, I would have had this after training, but I usually have a little bit of dessert anyway. This is just a little bit more because I'm just generally low on calories today. And if anything, my bad habit is not eating enough, which means less of the gains. So sometimes you just need to make sure the calories are there. But that's basically it in terms of the actual day of eating today. So let's take a look at the important thing, the scores on the doors, the total calories and kind of the breakdown of the day. Total calories for the day were just shy of 2,800, which, to be honest, that's probably on the lower side for me. I tend to probably eat a little bit more on training days because I just go a little bit harder on the carbohydrates. But that 2,800 calories was made up of 193 grams of protein, so decent amount of protein. I tend to aim for between 180 and 200. Carbohydrates was 203 grams. Again, this fluctuates. Sometimes a little bit lower on rest days. Usually it's probably close to the 250 gram mark on training days, and then 130 grams of fat, which again, I would say that's probably about average for me. Yeah, it's been the first time I've done a day of eating in a little while now, And I'm actually quite excited to be back and quite excited to be sharing this with you because I am very passionate about my food and eating well. And I enjoyed making recipes and making blog posts for you guys. So I want to definitely get back into that. I'm going to start introducing some recipes in these day of eating videos. If you want to see that, let me know in the comment section down below. But as always, guys, that is the end of the video. You can hit that thumbs up button if you want to support the channel. Right next to it is that subscribe button if you want to join the Bodyweight Warrior tribe. And also if you want to support me over on Patreon, link to that will be in the description down below. That's basically it for this week, guys. I'll catch you in the next episode. Have a strong week and